think it's someone who's able to inspire and inculcate ownership of equality, diversity, inclusion in the organization, evolve a shared understanding of what those things are. They're completely different things. We tend to lump them together. So a leader has to sort of be able to articulate those expectations, be able to live and breathe, equality and inclusive behaviours themselves, so it inspires this in others. Put in place appropriate systems of accountability and governance so that, when you do sort of set targets around issues, and this is not just around diversity, representational diversity targets, but really also about how you create inclusive organisations. So those accountability measures need to be different in addition to representational diversity. But overall, I think colleagues throughout the conference today have been talking about, being human, being authentic. Someone who can display vulnerability, who has the humility to be able to say, I've made a mistake, or colleagues have made a mistake, and we're learning from this. So that learning culture, having understanding of, different cultural competencies in the organisation, respect for the differences that people bring in the organisation, and ultimately to be able to sort of empathise and be compassionate. As a leader. So these aren't soft skills anymore, and they shouldn't be seen as soft skills. These are core competencies for effective leadership. But really holding people to account and themselves, being able to sort of understand and recognise where bias and discrimination and disadvantages exist, particularly those systemic ones, and take action, especially around positive action to ensure that people who have been historically discriminated against are given the support and empowered to be able to be their best so that everybody in the organisation can thrive. So success first needs to be sort of defined. What do we mean by success? I think ED&I strategies are only successful if it's integrated and built into business priorities. If ED&I strategies aren't delivering on adding value to achieving business priorities. So what do those business priorities look like? First of all, and is business priorities or are business priorities being defined too narrowly? So the moral, social and legal imperatives need to be built in. So we mustn't define business outcomes too narrowly. It's got to be inclusive of those outputs and outcomes as well in relation to what's the social benefit, what are the legal considerations, and is it the morally right thing to do? You could be a perfectly successful business, selling arms or whatever, a great fund manager earning billions for your bank, but you could be racist, you could be misogynistic, you could have all those sort of qualities of being biased and stereotypical, but that doesn't make for a sustainable organisation or business. So to be sustainable, you've got to define measures that look at how, so people talk about creating inclusive cultures, but it ends up being around representational diversity, having a diverse panel, having a diverse shortlist. So inclusive cultures is not just about that. It's more than that. It's to ensure that, people at the end, the people that are benefiting, whether it's employees or whether it's your service recipients or customers, what do they feel about the services and products that you're selling to them? What's the feeling? So that's a qualitative measure often, but it can be quantitative as well if you've got the scientific methods put in place. So it's really about ensuring that the feedback that you're getting from the people that are supposed to be benefiting from the interventions around ED&I is actually informing your more quantitative sort of metrics that you've got in the organisation. People are resistant to change. So resistance is the thing, inertia, the inability to, move beyond the current status quo. And people who, benefit from the status quo will always be resistant to change. But fundamentally, this is really about what ED&I does is challenge the power constructs in organizations and in society. And when you challenge power constructs, there's always going to be a backlash against that because people in power very rarely want to give it up. So this is the whole idea about the need to tackle inequalities through the antidote of equalities. So that's the reason that there's this resistance. But sometimes also what researchers are showing us is that the fear of engaging with this agenda because people don't understand it. So creating shared understanding around the language landscape particularly, it's very, very complex. People find it difficult, of fearing of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. So it's about storytelling, about moving from a deficits model of anti-this to a more positive benefits model of these are the opportunities, these are the benefits of equalities, diversity for you, your organisation and society at large. So I'd like to think that there'll be a greater emphasis on delivery of outcomes, around equalities of outcomes. So we've had 20, 25, 30 years of focus around on representational diversity. It's still important. We need organizations across the different levels to be representative of the societies and people that they serve. But that metric needs to shift to experiences that people have. So even though that you might have a representative organization or a woman leading an organization or a black person leading an organization, you still have inequalities endemic, systemic inequalities endemic in organizations. And that's what needs to be addressed. That's what needs to be systemically addressed by ensuring that everything that the organization does integrates equalities, diversity, inclusion. And the measures are quite different. How you measure equality is different from how you measure inclusion to how you measure diversity. So what do those new measures look like? For instance, one of those measures has to be around the well-being, how staff feel in the organization. Do they feel safe enough to be able to share their thoughts, be able to contribute to decision-making? That power-sharing bit is quite crucial. So I'd like to see a shift in staff engagement, staff involvement in decision-making.